Hero was brought about by scientists really analysing the way nature works, because this is a purely natural process. We noticed some artefacts occurring in our experimentation with fusion with the type of materials we were using. So we isolated those materials, and one day we saw a very unique reaction.
The Hero technology utilises hydrogen and oxygen gas, combines them in the presence of our Hero catalyst, and produces vast amounts of usable heat, and water is the only other output.
It is really a revolutionary way to grab the excess energy that's carried in hydrogen when it makes water with oxygen and carry that heat to where you need it fast.
The combination of hydrogen and oxygen in the Hero happens without the presence of a flame. It's not combustion in that sense, which makes it incredibly safe. It also opens itself to a wide range of potential applications.
The scalability of Hero is unlimited, but you don't need that much of it. That's the remarkable thing with it. Hydrogen is an incredible energy carrier. The key part of Hero is that it isn't part of the process, it's a home for the process. So you're not using the catalyst up. It is a very thin layer that allows you to coat certain substrates and allows you to use it in so many ways, from heat production in a factory to steam production to desalination to so many other applications. Hero can convert existing infrastructure like power stations that run on coal and make them zero emission and make them valuable again. So if you can imagine that a plant could run the same way it ran every day, minus the coal, minus the pollution, minus all those infrastructure pieces that you need, in fact minus about 50% of the plant, and still maintain its ability to supply the public and industry with power. For all those people out there who are hoping for zero emissions energy, hoping for a climate change solution, it's here. We don't have to wait till 2045 or 2060 to see the advances in energy. The time for Hero is now, the time for hydrogen is now.
Scott Morrison has high hopes for a hydrogen-fuelled future.
I want Australia and hydrogen technology to be synonymous around the world.
With a big boost in next month's budget, more than $500 million, $275 million to create hydrogen hubs in regional Australia, and $264 million for carbon capture and storage technologies to reduce emissions, creating about 2,500 jobs. The hubs bringing together technology developers, hydrogen producers and suppliers, combining skills to innovate and drive down costs.
Like you have a Silicon Valley, you've got a hydrogen valley.
Hydrogen can be extracted from water, methane gas or coal and can fuel cars, trucks, even ships, power electricity turbines, replace coal in steelmaking and replace natural gas for cooking and heating.
Hydrogen is zero emissions gas.
However, to be competitive, it needs to be produced for $2 a kilogram. It's currently almost double that.
Hydrogen is now. Hydrogen will be the future fuel. It's inexhaustible. It will dramatically drop in price, and it will become the base fuel of the planet.
The funding is over 10 years, but Scott Morrison will use it at US President Joe Biden's virtual climate summit on Friday as proof of his government's commitment to emissions reduction.
Hello, Andrew. How are you?
Good, thank you, Chip. Haven't seen you for a while.
Good to see you again. So I'm delighted that you're joining us for the Earth Day 2021 edition of the AREDAY virtual programming, and that we get to talk about Star Scientific and Hero, my favorite subject when it comes to green hydrogen. So maybe you could just give us a quick update overview in terms of what's happened since we met back in 2019. And I know there's been a lot of developments, but I know that this technology, Hero, came out of the search for cold fusion and then muon fusion. So maybe you could just walk us quickly through that.
Yeah, sure. So Star Scientific's always been a fusion research company. So nuclear-wise, we know hydrogen really, really well, down to the subatomic particle range. And during the course of that, we were doing some materials research, because we were having a few issues with materials. And we came across one that was very, very interesting about 3.5 years ago now. That material turned out to be what's known as a true catalyst. So normal catalysts lend themselves to a process. So if you mix a few things with a catalyst, a piece of that catalyst will join onto whatever you're mixing, and you'll end up with a new substance. And you do what you want with that substance. Most chemical industries work that way. A true catalyst acts as a home for a reaction to take place, so it doesn't get used up. And that's what HERO is. HERO stands for Hydrogen Energy Release Optimizer. So what happens is you place hydrogen and oxygen across the surface. They instantly change into something slightly different, but they don't like that. They like to be stable. Everything in physics in the universe likes to be stable. And the most stable way they can be is water. So they quickly form H2O, but when you do that, you have a very large amount of energy that comes out. So kilo for kilo, hydrogen to coal, it's about 5 times the energy of coal. So you get that energy, and that comes out in the form of what's called excitation energy. So vibrating atoms. Vibrating atoms are heat. So we can move more than 90% of that heat into whatever you want to heat. So be it steam, be it specialist gases, be it metals, be it hot plates, be it whatever you need in industry. So if you look at what HERO ideally is placed to do, it's anything heat related. And people should get their head around that 90% of industry is heat. Anybody wants to look around the room they're sitting in when they're watching this video, 99% of everything you're looking at had a heat component in it. You can't electrify all that. It's impossible. It just simply can't be done. You need to take across a heat component that is, of course, zero emission. So that's where HERO comes in. So that can go from pasteurizing milk, we've been asked to do that recently, right through to powering a power station.
So that was a nice backgrounder, and I'd like to just go into the situation in Australia, which is leading the world right now on hydrogen, and particularly green hydrogen. And Andrew, you're at the forefront of that with Star Scientific HERO. Could you just tell us a little bit about what's happening down in Australia and how you see the emerging hydrogen industry?
Sure. So first thing everyone has to understand about Australia, it's a group of states and a federation. But what is interesting is every single state and territory, as well as the federal government, are in firm agreement on hydrogen. Each one of them have a coordinated hydrogen policy that works with each other. So the country is ideal to make hydrogen. It is a big, vast, flat country, same land mass as the USA. It's a massive area. We all live around the coast, and the middle is fairly arid and dry and wonderful. So for making hydrogen from solar and wind and all our offshore facilities for wind, it's perfect. The focus, however, has been a lot on making the stuff, and much like we do with our resources, dig it up and send it out. That's what they're looking at doing, is making it and exporting it. Star Scientific and HERO are the demand side activators. So we're the ones saying, hello, we're the ones who'd like to use it, and there's ample opportunity to use it in Australia. So we've slowly chipped away at that and now gotten a lot of the authorities here to go, oh yeah, we can actually turn our industries, turn our suburbs to hydrogen, we can turn our power to hydrogen. So that's being now vastly looked at. I'm speaking at a number of very big conferences here in Australia, coming up, the next one's in May, which is solely focused on, you know, we know we can make it, we know we can export it in various forms, but what about using it here? So that's become a big argument. But the big thing that I think everyone has to understand with Australia is it's actually a united front. There isn't despite, whatever party is in power at whatever state, everybody is in agreement that this is how it is, this is what's going to come. Now, we're a massive gas and coal exporter. Everyone in the world knows that. But all the governments have realised, the end is nigh. This is a change in technology, and that's how they see it. People don't use the old roller washing machines or drive a 1960s Oldsmobile anymore. You've moved on. Well, we've moved on. We've moved on. This is the new technology. It's going to encompass the world. It's been accepted by Europe. It's been accepted by Asia. It's been accepted by Australia. Gradually, more and more, it's being accepted in the United States. Canada, South America have already said, look, we know it's it. So as an energy carrier, hydrogen will be the next big fuel that will go through the world. So Australia is poised to be a big player in that market.
Yes, the green hydrogen, and there's other types of hydrogen, blue and so forth, but everybody's big hope is that we'll be able to electrolyze water using utility scale renewable energy, hopefully seawater, and then have a source of energy that will be able to replace the coal, the oil, and the gas, which of course we don't want the pollution. So could you tell us how the SAR Scientific Hero Hydrogen Energy Release Optimizer can help in facilitating that?
Okay, well, the first one is that when you have a demand, so let's take a 2 gigawatt power station, you're talking about 1.7 million tonnes of hydrogen a year. So you're no longer talking about a few kilos of hydrogen or 60 kilos to fill up your car and use it as on a fuel cell. You're now talking about commercial quantities of hydrogen for just one power station. You bring in 10, 20, 30, or in America, hundreds. You're now talking at a completely different levels. You're talking gigatons of hydrogen being used around the world. So if you compare it to, say, in the early days of coal, if I discovered a coal mass underground and you said to me, hey, I want 1 tonne of coal, thanks, for the year, that 1 tonne of coal would cost you millions of dollars. All the infrastructure to set up to get you that 1 tonne of coal. But if next year you say, actually, I want 60 million tonnes, suddenly the price is down to $60 a tonne because of the spread, right? The same thing happens in hydrogen. When you go, hey, we're going to need to make gigatons of the stuff, suddenly it becomes a commodity that, in my view, eventually will be less than fossil fuels. Now, right now, the argument is, and a lot of the misleading arguments are, oh, hydrogen's very, very expensive. Well, yes, if you take an electrolyser and plug it into your local power point and get the local power company to sell you its power at whatever cents a kilowatt, yeah, of course it is. It's a ludicrous thing. No one would ever do that. You would set up your own systems whereby you have mass amounts of green electrons being produced. And no one should be under any doubt, despite the gas industry's protestations that blue hydrogen will be, it won't be. Europe's already declared green, we're declaring green, New Zealand's declared green, Philippines and Japan have declared green. So there's simply not a question, it's going to be zero emission electrons. When you look at producing that many electrons and you mass produce hydrogen and you store it in huge amounts of banks of gas and start moving it around in liquid form, gas form, or ammonia, or whatever you use, at the end of the day, it changes the economics of hydrogen and how it works. And people should remember, I mean, it's okay to cry everything we're using at the moment, but people should remember that moving energy around the world is fundamental to the economics of the world. Moving the money and the trade balances and how it all works, all of this is integral, and energy is the key player in that whole arrangement. So if we want a global, prosperous, job-producing world that is going to allow people to have fulfilling careers and become the best that they can be, energy exports and imports are going to form part of that. So trying to write off energy and saying, hey, you just can't dig that up anymore and send it, there needs to be an alternative. And hydrogen is that clean alternative. As opposed to a battery, you can't pick a battery up and export that to somewhere. You can't say, hey, I'm going to charge the battery, send it to you, send me it back when it's empty. That's a ludicrous proposition, okay? The ideal is to be able to grab that energy and have it stored for as long as you want it stored. Now, the nice thing with Hero is obviously Hydrogen, oxygen gives you water. Our water is absolutely pure that comes out of that. We put that straight back into an electrolyser. Now, of course, there are minor losses, about 10%, but 90% of that water comes back to us in the form of hydrogen and oxygen. So we're recycling the systems. It's not just, hey, we just keep using up water from somewhere. And yes, using seawater would be good, but it doesn't actually use that much water. It's quite surprising how little more water making mass hydrogen takes up. And there are numerous other methods being developed around using the water in the air, using different methodologies. But at the moment, clean electrolysis seems to be the way. And STAR is heavily involved in that part of the world too. We have our own electrolyser that's very, very highly efficient. So we're looking at the whole value chain from finance right the way through to storage, right the way through to how do you use the stuff.
That's excellent. Now, I know that when we produce electricity in a centralized power station from, say, coal or gas, and then we put it onto our high transmission power lines, we sometimes lose up to 40% line loss, depending on conditions, heat, and so forth. I understand that if we can go to a distributed form of energy, and use hydrogen and use the HERO heat exchanger, a catalyst, we can then capture all of that wasted energy, which of course is money, dollars, that we lose when we're pushing across hundreds of miles of transmission lines. Can you talk a little bit about how you see the HERO catalyst helping to go to a distributed, localized energy production in our cities and towns?
Sure. So let's start with why we do it the way we do it now. Effectively, the reason there are mega big, gigawatt power stations is not because that's the best ideal mechanism out there. You're quite right. There are line losses. You have a tornado, it knocks down lines. You have all sorts of issues. The reason they do it is that's where you stockpile the coal. So there's a central point to stockpile the coal. You've got to process, crush that coal, go through a whole bunch of processes, pardon me, and go through the pollution capture mechanism at the end in one central box. And that box is a couple gigawatts of power station, and they run that down the line. That has never been the ideal. The ideal is to put it into energy nodes of somewhere between 10 and 100 megawatts. So to give you an idea of that, there are technologies coming online now. One of them is called supercritical CO2. So this is CO2, highly pressurized, highly heated in a loop, in a closed loop that simply goes around in the loop, and the energy from that highly compressed CO2 is extracted, it's reheated, the energy is put back into it. So that's where HERO would come in, and you end up with that. The beauty of it is that for say 100 megawatt turbine, a 10 megawatt turbine that would sit into a very large room normally, you can hold one of these in your hand. They're very, very tiny. They're air cooled, they're even mobile. So in terms of being able to have power nodes, that eliminates the power line losses you're talking about. But there's a bigger economic story to this. If you then look at decentralizing power, many power hungry industries, so in America, aluminum, smelters, things like that, you've got data centers, for example, 200-300 megawatts of energy being consumed in one place. Those energy hungry industries should be on their own node. They should be operating on their own node. They shouldn't rely on thousands of kilometers of taxpayer funded power lines. So if you can do that, you can then start to do other things. You can decentralize industry to where industry needs to be and where the people want to live. Right now, the people live close to where their jobs are. So let's take any sort of state in America. If a company wants to move states and they're a big company, uses energy, well, where are they going to end up? They're going to end up around the central cities where the big hub of energy is, which means you are then drawing more people into that social crush and saying, well, we need more people now to live in this area because, that's where this industry is and that's where the jobs are. Well, what if you could take that industry and say, we're going to put it over here somewhere
and we're going to create a new sort of utopian vision of what a clean, zero emission group of suburbs and small city centre and industry is, and it lives in its own node. Its source of power is a hydrogen pipe, and that's where it gets its energy from. So all of those things, that infrastructure that you could build, allows you to start moving the population from this hyper compressed densities that you have in the US. And thankfully, we don't tend to have that here yet. We don't have the population in Australia, but you have these hyper compressed densities which lead to so many social problems. When you could actually allow people, because face it, I mean, who in America, I've spoken and been to America lots of times. When I speak to people and you say, look, you live here in the middle of the city, but what would be your ideal? And they go, oh, out somewhere in Connecticut or Arizona, or I'd love to live on a ranch, or I'd love to live out where blue sky country I hear about all the time. You know, I'd love to live out somewhere, you know, Colorado, somewhere nice, somewhere where I can see the horizon. But I can't do that because my industry is here. Well, what stops those industries moving to better places that give you more job freedom, allow people to work from home better, allow people to have a bigger property, to play a little bit of baseball in their own backyard, you know, let alone being in an apartment? That gives people, you know, I've always had a philosophy that government's only role, the only role government should ever have, is to allow you to become the best possible human being you can be. That should be it. That should be the mandate of every government in the world. That's what their job is. Pull the economic levers, keep out of our way, but set it up in such a way with education and everything else that you become the best person that you are able to be. And crushing you into the middle of a city and forcing you to be in that closed-in environment is not that goal. So this allows you, these nodes of energy allow you to do that. The other big thing they allow you to do is, if you've got a particular hot area, let's say in Texas, but it's cooler in another area, the only way to cope with the AC and all the power generation that needed in the hot area is to wind up a whopping big power station and start issuing out mass amounts of pollution just for that. Well, what happens if they have their own node? The AI would see that and go, let's switch another node on over there. Let's bring that power up, but we're not going to disturb the guys over here because they're traveling fine. Right. So nodes of energy are the key to distributed power, but it's a distributed lifestyle as well. It opens up vast areas of the world for people to live the way they want to.
Fantastic. And so with the coming of these CO2 turbines and that can operate on hydrogen, and the fact that we can now get as much hydrogen as we need through the electrolyzers, tell us why this breakthrough in HERO is seen as the market activator and actually accelerator for the global hydrogen market. How does that actually work?
Okay, so having a global activator like that, right? What it does, it allows heat in industry to be immediately overtaken by zero emission energy. It also allows that distributed power to be used immediately. So when you catalyze hydrogen, it is way better than burning. Burning hydrogen it's a fool's errand. It's silly, quite frankly. It's simply silly. When you hear people saying, oh, we're going to burn hydrogen in turbines, that's lovely. They're going to burn 7-12% and a lot more natural gas and still create pollution. They're just trying to decarbonize that pretty little turbine. You need to be able to get all the energy out of the hydrogen you can, and that's where HERO comes in. And it's done in one neat parcel. It's a one-step process. It's a nice, neat parcel. Now, that doesn't matter if you want to dry milk, dry seeds, dry nuts, whether you want to pasteurize milk. In the food industry, tomato canning, we're looking at in tomato industries in California at the moment. Things like that, whether it's food, whether it's all sorts of other packaging, plastics, breweries have come to us. So you've got all those heat industries that don't need to be electrified, that can be immediately switched over to something. Now, the beauty is that HERO isn't something where you say you've got to completely transform your plant. You don't. You transform the bit at the front end that's making your energy.
So let's say they have a coal-fired, New Zealand's a good example. They've got a big company down there making milk, dried milk. 25% of the world's dried milk comes from this milk powder. They use coal-fired boilers for their steam, right? So what you do is you take those coal-fired boilers away and you step in Hero. You now have a zero emission system providing that heat. The rest of their plant runs exactly like it did the day before. There's no massive change for them. The plant doesn't get touched. We don't go near it. That's the only way you're going to do this. So the argument of, hey, we have to electrify everything, I don't think people quite realise what that means. The amount of infrastructure you have to rip out and change is staggering. And it's not going to happen. People won't do it. They'll shut down industries before they do it to get to that level. You've got to find a plug and play solution that allows you to let those industries go to zero emission energy and not pollute anymore. And believe me, they all want to do it. I mean, these milk companies said they can't wait for the day that they can have, CO2 free or, zero emission energy used in our milk. They all want to desperately do it. So is the tomato guys and various other people. To have that is going to be the driver that will allow, that plug and play access for Hero is the driver that will drive that. Now, when people are demanding that, they're demanding hydrogen. You demand more hydrogen, hydrogen price goes down. You create a global hydrogen market. And that becomes the whole impetus to changing the global economy.
Well, it's a fantastic breakthrough, and I know that you have been recognized globally. You've been winning some very prestigious awards lately. What are one I know came from Platts, an energy company organization. But tell us a little bit about the accolades and the recognition that the Hero catalyst has been receiving of late.
Oh, sure. I mean, the first prestigious one we got was from AREDAY, so that was wonderful. Sustainable Energy Council recently, that was the most recent one. We've been nominated for 3 other awards that are coming up. Let's see how we do in them. Awards are nice and it's industry recognition, but it's also peer recognition. It's peer review because the people that give these things out, they're not doing it for any commercial gain. They are top-ranked businessmen and scientists who look at what you want to do and what the product is. So Sustainable Energy Council has recently gone further. They've formed a global 10-person committee to look at rolling out hydrogen. So the Sustainable Energy Council advise governments around the world, 60 of them at the moment. And they've formed a 10-person committee, which they've asked me to sit on. And these are people like the head of the Port of Rotterdam and Shell's, renewable guy, and really, really prestigious people. So I'm very honoured to be in their company, who are going to meet 10 times a year, sit down and work out how to push hydrogen further. So those sort of accolades, and connections are vital. So, we've definitely, we're being bombarded by government. We have an MOU with the Philippines, the entire country, to convert them to hydrogen and to convert them to Hero. And the big selling point was where they wanted to put new cities. So people don't know about the Philippines, 56% of their population is under 25. So very young group of people coming up in the world all want to move to Manila to get a job. It's not viable, not for 111 million people. They want to build new cities, but their problem was we're going to have to build them where the existing power infrastructure is, and that's not where we want to build them. Until we came along and went, actually, no. Well, firstly, where would you like to build them? And that just shocked them. When you go to a country and say, no, don't forget about everything you've got on planning. Where would you like to build it? So things like that have gained us more and more and more momentum. I mean, we're talking in Germany at the moment. We're talking to other nations. I've just finished a series of conferences presenting in Africa. A number of countries there make vast amounts of tea, and this would shock you as a member of AREDAY. There is a couple of the countries there are the biggest tea producers out there. And they've got 12 plants that each burn 11 tons of eucalyptus wood a day to dry their tea, unfiltered. So you look at that and you think, and they're saying, we know we have to stop doing this. Come help us with Hero. Come help us with Hero. And we're engaging in that now. So
you know, the accolades help because they give you that recognition, but it's more about the connections that you make through them.
Sure. Well, I mean, the technologies are being recognized internationally. You're signing MOUs with countries to help them develop their energy infrastructure. You're talking with food companies. So the HERO catalyst, the heat exchange catalyst, can be applied anywhere where heat is needed in an industrial process, right? So please, with the remaining 5 minutes that we have, could you walk us through the STAR group? I know you have STAR Europe, you have STAR Singapore, but you also have an organization called Planet Power Finance. How are you positioning to roll out this technology, and how quickly do you see this happening?
Okay, so the way we're going to roll the technology out, we're not selling HERO, we're selling heat. So that market model actually comes from Rolls-Royce, who stopped selling jet engines 15 odd years ago, and they now sell thrust. But many industries have picked this up. There's a number of drill makers in Scandinavia now who used to sell you drills. They don't sell you drills, they sell you holes now. So we're selling heat as a service. So think of it as a service. So we'll maintain HERO. So the rollout of that is progressing. We've commissioned now one of the first major systems that are producing superheated steam. That's moving to the next level. So you have to go through these different levels to get accredited and get certified with pressure vessels. That's moving to the next level. We're looking for land to build mass manufacture plants in the US, here, and in Germany. So that's moving very quickly. So we're looking for locations around that. We're about to open an office in San Francisco. So Planet Power Finance plays a very big role in that. So we are a vertically integrated company. We do it all ourselves. So we have a finance arm that deals in financing new hydrogen technology that will assist HERO in getting its product to the market. So be it hydrogen storage, be it hydrogen electrolyzers, be it floating wind turbines, new types of floating wind turbines to give us green electrons. They fund all those things, but they also fund the transition to HERO. And they do that via a company called Planet Power Systems, which is based in Singapore. So Planet Power Systems is the rollout company. They're the company that will install, maintain, operate HERO and provide the heat for everybody that they need. HERO is AI controlled already. We have some very, very fancy guys there who are very clever with robotics and mechanization. And it's quite fascinating to what was people setting up vast amounts of typing in vast amounts of values to setting in one value, pressing a button, and the robot runs off and goes, cool, I got this. You guys can go relax now. So the systems that we're going to employ will be all telemetry driven. We will have all that information. And what the wonder of that is, when you're getting information around the world from every HERO unit becomes an experiment in itself. So anything you see, you can upgrade your technology by all the little things you see. It's exactly what Rolls-Royce did. They claimed one time that they did 20 years of research in 5 years because every jet engine was a flying laboratory as far as they were concerned. So they keep upgrading their engines and they never tell anybody what they're doing. They're just upgrading the engines quietly because they don't sell engines, they sell thrust. So the same thing applies to HERO. So that's how it's going to get rolled out. We're going through our processes at the moment. I would suggest we'll be in food fairly quickly. I think that's a low-hanging fruit for us. It's only 200 degrees C on most applications. We are talking to power companies. I just finished a meeting with a very, very big turbine producer before this meeting. And we're talking to them about, rolls out of specialist turbines for special reasons and how they would integrate with HERO. So we've got a lot of excited people buzzing around us at the moment to get this out there.
Fantastic. Well, Andrew Horvath, Executive Chairman of the STAR Scientific HERO Group of companies. If HERO is the Rolls-Royce of hydrogen technologies, then I think that we have a very bright future ahead of us.
Oh, we think it is.
Thank you so much for joining us for this AREDAY 2021 Earth Day program. And I look forward to seeing you again at AREDAY in person soon. And all the best to you, and Godspeed down there in Australia.
Thank you very much, and please pass my regards to the AREDAY team.
Thank you, Andrew.